Welcome to the Business of Travel, the official podcast of the Global Business Travel Association. I'm Daniel Norris, a member of the Accommodation Committee and recently appointed Regional Sales Director at eHotel. I'll be your host for today's episode. Today's topic is refining the landscape of accommodation payment and billing in business travel. I'm delighted to have a distinguished panel to shed light on this important conversation. Joining us today are my co-host Anwar Mrisa and our guest speakers Michael Hutcho, Clive Cornelius, and Jody Gomez Tavares. Let's start by getting to know each other. Hi Anwar, welcome to the podcast. Could you tell us a bit about yourself?
Hello, I'm Anwar Mrisa, Director of Sales at eHotel based in Berlin. I've spent 17 years in the hospitality industry, focusing on payment and billing for the last 5 years. Today, I'm excited to discuss the evolving payment landscape in our industry and its potential for transformative growth.
Thank you, Anwar. Hi, Michael. Glad to have you here. Please share a brief intro about you with our listeners.
Hi, Daniel. Thank you so much for having me. My name is Michael. I spent the first half of my career in hospitality in hotel operations and the second half in commercial. I have been with Accommodations for 13 years, being responsible for e-commerce, distribution, loyalty, and guest experience in Central Europe. Since 2019, I work as an independent management consultant for various hotel chains, tech suppliers, and distributors.
Wonderful. Thank you, Michael. Over to Clive. Welcome aboard. Could you tell us a bit about your background?
Thanks, Dan, and hello, everyone. I'm Clive Cornelius. I work for Visa. I work in our Visa commercial solutions team, and I look after the T&E and procurement segments. Been with Visa now for 5.5 years, but prior to that, had worked in the business travel industry for about 15 years with roles at companies like CWT and Travelport.
Thanks, Clive. And last but not least, Jody, thanks for joining us. We'd love to hear a bit about your experience and role.
Thanks, Dan. Happy to join this important topic. So I'm Jody Gomez Tavares. I have over 15 years of experience in business travel and technology providers, including payments. I worked in commercial roles at companies as Sixt, Booking, and Amex GBT. Currently, I'm an independent business consultant at a hotel PMS software solution, Novi. And I look forward to working on this topic and discussing the main challenges and opportunities for the business travel industry.
Amazing. Thank you, Jody. That's a really great introduction from you all. First of all, I'm going to hand over to Anwar, who will give us a bit of background to the topic.
Thank you, Daniel. We are at a pivotal moment in the payment industry, especially in the hospitality sector, where innovation isn't just happening, it is flourishing. The numbers are quite telling of the ongoing transformations. According to Juniper Research, this year we will see 28 billion virtual card transactions worldwide, which is expected to surge to over 121 billion by 2027. The steep adoption curve mirrors not just widespread use, but also the essential needs for evolving payment solutions. Insights from a 2024 A+ survey of industry purchasing managers highlight this trend. 38% have adopted new payment methods, and 41% are planning to do so soon. However, the journey hasn't been smooth for everyone. 11% tried, but ultimately turned away from new payment technologies. Furthermore, an April 2023 MasterCard survey reveals a strong consensus among travel planners. 90% expect virtual cards to dominate corporate travel bookings within the five years, signaling a significant pivot towards digital solutions. Despite this progress, challenges remain, particularly in how new technologies are integrated within existing infrastructures. Outdated methods like faxing, which caused 80% of communication failures last year, are being replaced by more effective solutions such as secure emails and APIs, which have achieved a 99.33% success rates in transmitting virtual cards details. Back to you, Daniel.
Thank you, Anwar. That was really insightful. A lot of very good data there just to kind of set set the picture. But now we're going to dive a little deeper into the discussion. Michael, could you provide us with some insights into the current challenges from a hotel point of view and delve into the complexities facing hotels in managing payments within the context of business travel?
Absolutely, Daniel. I think to understand the complexity of payment and hospitality, it helps a bit to go from macro to micro. Well, first of all, hospitality is a very fragmented industry. We're kind of old school and we're not really digital natives. Half of the existing hotels today are privately owned and operated with very limited access to travel technology and streamlined processes. So when we look into today's branded hotels, hotel chains with owned, franchised, and managed hotel distribution patterns, we face a multi-channel environment. Domestic and international bookings run through an enormous maze of booking channels, direct and indirect, online, offline, contracted, public, individual, and groups, and you name it. But to make it even more complicated, a growing part of the revenues is controlled by mighty intermediaries who monetize every possible step of the customer journey before, during, and after the hotel stay. So to say post-stay processes, such as an example, invoicing, payment, and document management are, as a result, a larger challenge. So commercial conflicts and maybe a lack of trust do exist in a triangle of supplier, corporate, and distributor. This is concerned about distribution cost. We speak about customer data, the ownership of it, etc. And that makes it difficult to develop a joint solution. So from a hotelier perspective, there are four major solution fields. First, customer or traveler's identification. There is no such industry standard as a unique identifier, and that seems to be quite a large issue. Second, connectivity. From online booking tools over GDSs and CRSs to PMSs to access invoice data at PMS levels. Today, those systems are not even starting in the process to merge with each other. Third, we need to simplify today's manual process with the help of digitization. There is a big focus on accounts receivable where there is still today a workload of manual effort. And four, last but not least, we need service agreements with third-party providers, such as, for example, hotels and others. Payment is not a core competency of hoteliers, so hoteliers need to find a level of trust in regards to service agreements with others.
Wonderful. Thank you, Michael. That's a really great start to the conversation and definitely gives a good perspective from a hotel point of view. Thank you. Next, I'm thinking that we'll connect with Clive and Jody, and we'll explore the role of cutting-edge technologies in streamlining payments and billing processes. So, Clive and Jody, my question to you is, how do you see the payment industry develop and adopt central payment, including Lodge? So, Clive, I'm going to go to you first.
Thanks, Dan. Yeah, central payments long been a need in the travel industry because not every traveler is issued with a company card, a corporate card, and not everyone is able to use their own personal card to pay for business travel. Lodge Card was introduced decades ago as a way to centralize payment of flights and rail, and even the booking fees of the travel management company. But for hotel and on-the-go costs, for a long time, they were a challenge.
Wonderful. Thank you, Clive. That's great. Jody.
Yeah, of course. Heading up on Clive's topic, the payment providers landscape has changed. Virtual payments has set the entry level, and we all have to accommodate with new rules and regulations from a tax and expense purposes. That brings a lot of challenges from a buyer's perspective and an hotelier's perspective, of course. The virtual payments have been around since the 90s, and we still have to adapt to new technology for sure. And like Mike already said, it's a challenge for hoteliers as well to connect their systems together. looking at the different regions, of course, looking at the type of travelers, you also have to adapt. A new type of payments like WeChat Pay and Alipay is a big requirement for the Asian market, who's seen it as their first type and foremost way of paying. It's a huge shift away from the traditional credit cards, and the fintech industry does not foresee this setup being hugely adopted by Europeans, but the wallet format seems to be the one. So it's a challenge, but also an opportunity for the industry to develop into new forms of payments.
Jody, what I would like to know from a buyer's perspective, what if you are in a current situation that you want to update or change your payment strategy? What would you suggest?
Changing your payment strategy can be a big hassle, but it will help you in the end also to increase maybe your payment adoption. So changing your payment strategy requires the insight in the type of travelers and the expense process, because of course you want to know what kind of invoicing and accounts receivable, like you said as well, need to be received. Would you change or add the additional form of payment, or do you set stricter rules? It's also one of the topics that can be discussed. And of course, you can discuss it with your TMC, with your hoteliers, your chains, and look up the possibility of creating maybe a new strategy or something to adapt. As we all know, the fintech world is changing a lot, and the flexibility of moving along with those challenges or with those new changes can help. So suggesting that checking up on your needs is the first thing to do.
Thanks, Jody. That's really insightful. I'm going to stay with Clive and Jody. And another question I have is, do hotels have challenges with centralized payments? Clive, again, I'm going to start with yourself.
Thanks. Yeah, for hotels, the centralized payment solution for a long time revolved around the TMC acting as a bank, if you like. So paying hotels on account. But this was, and for those still using it, hard to maintain. If you think about the multiple clients with multiple hotel programs, and as you described earlier, hotels are privately owned or operated with franchises. So it adds a lot of complexity. So this is where virtual cards initially made their foray into the hotel use case. We came a long way. We've already touched on the fact that a lot of the information used to be shared by fax. Now there's direct integration into the property management systems or the CRS, and the use of secure email or e-fax. But for the latter, the challenges still exist, requiring the hotel front desk staff to know the process.
Yeah, that's interesting. Jody.
Yeah, of course, the source of the booking can also create some discrepancy in the payment requirements. So take a booking.com rate versus a corporate rate. This creates confusion for TMC or the PMS, but they try to maintain all bookings in one overview and report to the hotel spend. But this could be a challenge as well for front desk, like Clive said. The next thing, I think a huge topic when it comes to payments is keeping your data safe and securing privacy. More hacks and data mining is currently occurring, and hotels will also need to invest in safety of their payment data. And overall, of course, overall data security is a huge topic.
Thank you, Jody. And do you know what? I think that looking at the present and the challenges of payments is really important for today's podcast. But also, I think that forward-looking would be really useful for our listeners. So, one more time, I'm going to stay with Clive and Jody for this one. So, how would the future of payments look like for the hospitality industry? I'll stay in the same order. Clive.
Yeah, thanks. Well, for the last couple of years, we've had the ability for virtual cards to be added to Apple and Google Pay. So as long as the hotel accepts contactless transactions, then the front desk don't even need to know it's a virtual card. So I'd say that's one great improvement.
Perfect. Thank you, Clive. That's great. And then I think it's important at this point, actually, that just hearing you on those, Jody, if you could add to that as well.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, AI will be also integrated in many processes, especially with filling in data in advance. This will also come with some security challenges, of course, like discussed before, but investing in data security is still huge. This also might be a question for travel managers, want to ask their travel providers for hotels and TMCs they will collaborate with.
Thanks, Jody. I think on that, just taking into account the kind of three where we've looked at the kind of challenges, the present and the future, have you got any tips from both of you in terms of the best practices for kind of travelers and hotels? Clive, what do you think?
Absolutely. For travelers and the corporates themselves, I think that educating the travelers that when they're checking in, not to say things like the hotel is prepaid, because that immediately causes some friction at the check-in process. So suggest that there's a message that should have been received with card details and it's used to pay for the hotel centrally or something along those lines. They should have a clear understanding as travelers that their TMC or their company of what to do if they do face challenges. If there's an intermediary that's being used, understand that payment flow. So, for example, in some cases, it's the travel management company that's paying for the hotel rather than the corporate direct. So understanding whose card is being used and, as I say, how that kind of might impact the flow. So just making sure they're properly informed really is a key part for the travelers.
Thanks, Clive. Jody, what are your thoughts on the travelers part?
Yeah, to add on Clive's part, the information is crucial, and there's technology nowadays that can help push messages to travelers. That can be through your online booking tool, it could be to chat, and of course the developments with AI will help. There's not a solution yet in the market that I know of, so it might be an opportunity for the industry to look at, to start push messages through AI, like a chat robot, to help educate the travelers, like Clive just mentioned, so that the traveler knows upfront what's paid, what's not paid, and where they need to show any other types of forms of payment. It can leave out a lot of friction points and can help increase the journey from the guests.
Perfect. And just sticking on tips, because I think it's important. We've looked at travelers. As I mentioned, hotels, I'm sure would benefit from some tips on this. So again, Clive and Jody, same order. Clive, over to you. What are your thoughts here?
Yeah, it is important because it does impact both sides. I think that from a hotel's perspective, where they might be working with intermediaries, whether that's their own platforms or maybe the travel management companies, the GDSs, is look at how best to integrate into the different ways of working. So be outspoken around what others may need to do for it to work in their process. I think where the process is less automated, so maybe it's an email or an e-fax, make it a standard part of the front desk training, because I think that's where a lot of the problems have occurred, is where the front desk aren't aware of it, but they know how to use the system for checking someone in. So make this a standard part. I know it's not for every traveler, but the numbers that Anwar talked about earlier is that virtual cards are going to increase. So having it as a standard part of the process, I think is critical. And then the last thing I talked about moving to Apple and Google Pay is the fact that as a hotel, work with your acquirer to make sure that contactless payment is enabled, including the authorization process, but also make sure the front desk staff are aware of that. I always kind of see this as a personal challenge for myself every time I check into the hotel. I pretend I don't have my physical card with me anymore and it's only available in Apple Pay. But sometimes it can take 5 minutes of arguing with the front desk staff to just try the fact that this can work in a contactless way. And sure enough, once you kind of get there, it can actually work. So I think enabling and also training staff that it's a possible process is going to be critical in terms of making it a success.
Yeah, and I agree with that. I mean, I'm one person that I don't travel with my wallet. I only use contactless these days. So I think that is definitely an important part, certainly from hotels and a training perspective. Jody, what are your thoughts?
As a hotelier, you want to check up on your travelers' needs. Investing in market research, as said, collaborating with your acquirer. There are many hotels who think payments are an expensive add-on, but actually this could also open up new opportunities. One of the topics that is currently happening is, of course, also the DCC, the currency converter. It might enable to reach new travelers from new markets. We spoke about WeChat and Alipay that could open up a whole new market for the Asian market. And as a hotel, investing in that knowledge can be very helpful in getting new guests in.
Wonderful. Thanks, Jody and Clive. Look, that provides some really great insights into how technology can be streamlined in these processes. And I think we've had some amazing insights from everyone today, Michael, Jody, Clive, and of course, Anwar at the start of a conversation. Look, I think we could sit here for another hour or two discussing this, but I'm conscious that we want to keep this to really provide some great and streamlined insights. So to wrap this up, I'd like to ask each of our speakers for their final thoughts and takeaways based on today's discussion. So, Michael, if you don't mind, I will start by asking you that question.
Thank you, Dan. I think the key takeaway is training and technology. Clive said it very clear. The hotel staff needs to be not just looking on welcoming guests, but also secure that the end of their customer journey, meaning payment, is done properly. And the other thing is technology. I think there is a big paradigm shift going on in the hospitality industry nowadays. We come out of a world where old-fashioned legacy PMS were kind of rigid. This now, thanks to AI and the cloud technology, changes more and more. So we speak about open interfaces that do allow payment providers to dock onto the property management, making multi-channel reservations and multi-channel payments available. So I think those two things we can take away as of today to be a trend towards the future for a more seamless and more comfortable customer journey before, during, and looking into payment also after the journey.
Thanks, Michael. Jody, I'd love to hear your final thoughts and takeaway.
Yeah, of course. I think investing in technology is key, like Michael said. Of course, the enhanced technology that's out there right now is, of course, difficult maybe to keep track on. But there are a lot of partners in the industry that can help sharing knowledge and looking at the potential. Things like cryptocurrency, biometric identification is something that might enter into our world of hospitality, but it also might not. But it's good to be on top of trends and possibilities of creating a frictionless payments journey within your hotel.
Thanks, Jody. Really great. And Clive, I'd love to hear your thoughts.
Yeah, I'll keep it brief. I think, as we touched on, for travelers without a card, virtual is a critical advancement from a business travel payment perspective, and it's continuing to grow. So I think there's two things there. I touched on it, but ensure contactless is enabled. So as the use of it evolves and it becomes a wallet contactless transaction, you're there and able to support that from a hotel's perspective. But I think, like in so many things in life, collaboration is key. So keep talking to each other where there are problems, understand where it's falling down, and continue to talk and educate on both sides of the flow.
Great. Thank you, Daniel. Thank you to our panelists for your invaluable insights, and to our listeners for tuning in. You have been listening to The Business of Travel, the official podcast of the Global Business Travel Association. For more information about GBTA and its work, visit gbta.org. and be sure to rate and review us wherever you get your podcasts. Until next time, thank you for listening.